As Koda entered his second year, the mysteries of the forest continued to unfold around him, and with them, the curious and sometimes unsettling presence of humans. He had grown accustomed to hearing about them from the older Sasquatch, who spoke of humans' tools and strange habits, and the odd, clumsy ways that they moved through the forest. Encounters with humans were rare, but were always treated with caution and respect within the clan. Meika and Taron taught that the humans were not to be feared outright, but they were unpredictable, and their presence warranted vigilance. But to Koda and the rest of the younger members of the clan, these tales of humans stirred a mixture of curiosity and trepidation. They wondered about these strange beings who left unnatural trails through the woods, who sometimes made loud sounds and shined lights that disturbed the night. As much as they were taught to avoid the humans, Koda and the other juveniles couldn't resist a little fun at the humans' expense. One late summer afternoon, Meika led Koda, Rayla, and Paka to a narrow trail where the humans occasionally passed. She explained that her father Taron had shown her the art of misleading humans to protect the clan, confusing them just enough to keep them away from the clan's primary territory. Koda's eyes widened as Meika described a few of the tricks that she had learned. First lesson, Meika said with a grin, leaving a single footprint. She lifted her large hairy foot and placed it firmly into a patch of soft soil, pressing down to leave a clear, deep impression. She then carefully stepped back, using a nearby rock to avoid leaving a second footprint. Humans get so confused when they see only one print, Meika said, chuckling. They think it's some kind of a ghost creature. Paka and Rayla giggled, eager to try it themselves. Koda watched carefully. Then he carefully pressed his foot into the soil, pulling back to admire the single footprint he had left behind. The mark was faint, but Meika nodded approvingly. They'll spend hours just trying to figure out where the other footprints went, Rayla added, her eyes shining with mischief. Next, Meika showed them how to make tree breaks, small but visible cracks or bends in saplings that humans would see as peculiar or unnatural. She gently twisted a young tree trunk until it splintered, creating an audible crack. These marks make the humans think they're being watched, Meika whispered. They don't know it's us, but it gives them a little scare, enough to make them cautious. Koda felt a thrill run through him as he practiced, making his own tree breaks along the path, imagining the humans' reactions. Though he hadn't had another encounter with them since the incident with the fisherman, he felt the weight of their presence. They were intruders, but strange ones, moving through the forest in ways that didn't make sense to him. Yet he was fascinated by the humans, especially the effect that they had on his clan. The four of them spent the rest of the afternoon playing their tricks along the trail, carefully weaving between the trees, leaving footprints and tree breaks in just the right places to make their marks clear but cryptic. By the time they made their way back to the clan's territory, Koda was exhilarated by the idea that the humans would be stumped by the signs that they left behind. The next time that Koda found himself near humans, the situation was far less lighthearted. It was late one autumn evening, and he had gone with Meika, Rayla, and Paka to explore a stretch of forest by the river. They had intended to meet up with Eric and Varro, who had gone ahead to scout the area. But as twilight began to descend, Eric and Varro were nowhere in sight, and the young Sasquatches were left near the water's edge. Koda felt a faint unease as the shadows deepened, casting an eerie stillness over the forest. Just as he was about to suggest that they head back, a strange, distant sound echoed through the trees. It was a long, drawn-out howl, followed by a series of knocks against the trees. The sound was foreign, chilling, and it was unlike any call Koda had heard from his clan. Meika motioned for them to crouch down, her face tense. "Humans," she whispered. "They're trying to mimic our sounds." Koda's heart hammered as he listened. The sounds were close enough that he could hear a faint murmur of human voices, broken by more howls and tree knocks. It was clear that the humans were trying to communicate or lure them out. The younger Sasquatches huddled together, unsure whether to stay or run. Suddenly, a beam of light cut through the trees, illuminating the underbrush with a strange, unnatural glow. Koda's eyes widened in surprise. He'd never seen anything like it. It was as though the humans had brought daylight into the night. "What is that?" Rayla whispered, shrinking back. "They're using tools," Meika said, her voice laced with worry. "I've heard my father talk about this. They have lights that let them see in the dark." Koda felt a shiver of fear, but he also had a strange fascination. These humans seemed to possess a kind of magic, a way of bending the forest to their will. The beam of light swept across the ground, scanning the forest floor. Koda held his breath, hoping the darkness would conceal them. But as the voices grew louder, he realized that the humans weren't staying in one group. They were spreading out, moving around the young Sasquatches in an attempt to flank them. They were being surrounded. Meika gestured for them to move up, signaling for silence as she led them away from the river and into the dense thicket of bushes. They moved as quietly as they could, their senses on high alert. But Koda could feel the human presence closing in on them. Another beam of light swept over their hiding spot, and for a heart-stopping moment, Koda thought they had been spotted. "We need to keep moving," Meika mouthed, her eyes wide with urgency. She motioned for Koda and the others to follow her lead, crouching low and weaving through the underbrush. Koda's heart pounded as he crept forward, every sound amplified in his ears. The humans' howling and tree-knocking continued, echoing through the trees with an eerie persistence. They made it a few more yards before they heard footsteps, heavy crunching footsteps that were coming from all directions. The humans had split up into smaller groups, methodically sweeping through the forest in search of them. Koda felt a rising panic as he realized just how close the humans were. He could smell them now, a strange, unfamiliar scent that set his nerves on edge. "Up the trees," Meika whispered urgently, motioning for them to climb. They never look up. Koda and the others scrambled to the nearest tree, their claws digging into the bark as they ascended into the safety of the branches. From his perch, Koda watched as two humans passed directly beneath him, their faces illuminated by the glow of their strange devices. One of them held a small object that emitted a red light, scanning it back and forth as if searching for some sign of their presence. Koda held his breath, pressing himself against the trunk as the humans moved beneath him. The red light flickered, passing over the ground before disappearing into the darkness. After a few tense moments, the humans moved on, their footprints fading into the distance. Koda exhaled slowly, glancing over at Meika, who gave him a reassuring nod. But just as he thought they were safe, another beam of light appeared on the other side of the tree, illuminating Rayla, who was hidden just a few branches away. The light paused as if the humans had seen something unusual. Koda felt a surge of panic as he realized that Rayla was partially exposed, her hair blending into the shadows but just faintly visible. He knew they had to act quickly or risk being discovered. Without a word, Meika motioned for them to climb higher, using the thick foliage to shield themselves from view. Koda followed her lead, moving silently as he ascended up to the higher branches. Rayla did the same, her small form blending into the shadows as she moved out of the light's reach. The humans hesitated, their voices tense as they scanned the area, but after a few moments, they seemed to lose interest and moved on. Koda felt a wave of relief wash over him, but he knew they weren't safe yet. The humans were still close, and they would need to stay hidden until they could find a way to escape. They waited in silence, listening as the humans' voices grew fainter. Finally, Meika signaled for them to climb down, her expression tense but determined. One by one, they descended from the tree, landing softly on the forest floor. Koda could feel the adrenaline coursing through him as they crept through the underbrush, moving as quickly and quietly as they could. When they were far enough from the humans, Meika led them to a small, secluded clearing where they could catch their breath. Koda glanced around. He felt a surge of relief knowing they had evaded the humans without being seen. "I can't believe they looked up," Rayla whispered. Meika nodded, his eyes wide with fear. "I've never seen humans like these before. They were hunting us. We made it out because we stayed calm and used everything we've learned. Remember that, Koda. The forest is our home, but it can be dangerous too. You have to be ready for anything." Koda nodded, feeling a newfound respect for Meika and the others. The experience had been frightening, but it also taught him a valuable lesson. The forest was a place of beauty and danger, and he needed to rely on his instincts, his courage, and the support of his clan to navigate it safely. As they made their way back to the clan's territory, Koda felt a deep sense of pride in his skills he had learned and the strength that he had gained from his family. The forest might be filled with threats, but he knew he was never alone, and with each encounter, he grew more prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. By the time Koda and the others returned to the clan's main territory, the sky had darkened, stars twinkling faintly through the gaps in the trees. The young Sasquatches were exhausted from their close call with the humans. They knew that the clan elders would want to know every detail, and as they approached the main clearing, they saw Omaki, Taron, Koda, and Asha waiting for them. Omaki stepped forward, her expression a mixture of concern and relief. "You four were gone longer than usual," she said gently. "Are you all right?" Koda nodded, though he could feel the trembling in his limbs. He took a breath, trying to find the words to describe what they had experienced. "Humans," he said finally. His voice hushed. They were different this time. They had strange tools, lights they could see in the dark, and they were making our sounds, howling, knocking on trees. Taron exchanged a worried look with Koda. "They're getting bolder," he said, "and more dangerous." Asha said to the group of youngsters, "You did well to get back safely, all of you. Tell us what happened, in your own words." Taking turns, the young Sasquatches recounted their ordeal in vivid detail, describing how the humans had split up, used lights to search the dark, and even managed to get close enough that Koda thought he had been spotted. Omaki listened intently, her gaze focused and thoughtful. "These humans are learning," she said softly. "They've come to understand that we are here, that we leave signs, and now they're using what they know to try to find us. We must be more careful now." Koda felt a shiver as he considered the implications. He had always seen the humans as clumsy and unaware, but the experience tonight changed that view. These humans were hunting, actively searching for his clan, and it made him feel vulnerable in a way that he hadn't before. But he also felt a surge of pride that they had outsmarted the humans, using the skills that he had learned from the clan to stay hidden and make it back to safety. Omaki placed a hand on his head, ruffling his hair in a rare show of affection. "Koda, you're growing quickly and learning much. But also remember, curiosity has its limits. Stay vigilant and listen to your instincts. They'll guide you as much as the forest will." Koda and Asha shared a glance, nodding in agreement. Koda knelt to look Koda in the eye. "Every encounter you have, every close call, teaches you more than you know. One day, you'll be the one protecting this clan." Koda felt his chest swell with pride at his father's words. He understood that tonight's experience was one of the many lessons he would carry with him. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about being strong, wise, and united with his family. In the days that followed, the clan convened to discuss the increasing human presence and how they could avoid detection. Omaki and Taron emphasized the importance of leaving fewer signs and trails, creating an atmosphere of caution and teamwork that Koda hadn't experienced before. The elders and the older clan members took the time to teach the younger ones new ways to remain hidden, especially from the humans' lights and strange tools. Koda found himself particularly fascinated by Omaki's teachings on camouflage and silence. She explained that the humans relied heavily on sight and sound, often overlooking details in their hurry. They had practiced these skills as a family many times, but now they focused on the specifics like blending in with the shadows and moving without disturbing the underbrush. "Always move with the rhythm of the forest," Omaki instructed them one misty morning as she led the young Sasquatches through a dense part of the woods. "If a branch creaks, let it pass before you move. If you hear a rustling, pause and listen. This is how we keep the forest's secrets safe from prying eyes." Koda took these lessons to heart, applying them each time he ventured out with the other juveniles or his mentors, Varro and Eric. He felt himself becoming more attuned to the forest's sounds and movements, finding comfort in the way he could move without leaving a trace. It was as if he were merging with the forest itself, a silent watcher within its depths. Despite their efforts to avoid the humans, there were many times when they still encountered them, particularly near the river. The humans seemed to be drawn to the water, their paths crisscrossing along the banks where the clan often foraged. During one of these excursions, Koda along with Meika and Paka were collecting wild mushrooms near the river when they heard the unmistakable murmur of human voices approaching. Koda froze, glancing at Meika, who quickly signaled for them to move up the hill away from the trail. They scrambled through the underbrush, staying low as the humans passed, their voices filled with laughter and curiosity. Koda forced himself to stay calm, remembering Omaki's advice. When the humans finally moved on, Koda exhaled in relief, sharing a grin with Paka, who had been crouching beside him. "We did it," Paka whispered, his excitement barely contained. "I don't think they even noticed us." Meika nodded approvingly. "See? The humans may be getting smarter, but we're still faster, quieter. We know this forest better than they ever could." Koda felt a renewed sense of confidence, realizing that their training was paying off. But he also understood that these encounters weren't just games. Every time they avoided detection, it was a small victory, a reminder that they were not only surviving, but thriving in the face of the strange and unpredictable presence. One evening, as dusk settled over the forest, the clan gathered around the main clearing, sharing stories and enjoying the calm night air. Koda was with Paka, recounting the time that they'd seen a human fall into the river, splashing and struggling as they tried to regain their footing. They laughed, amused by the memory of the humans' clumsy movements, when they were interrupted by a strange flash of light in the distance. Everyone fell silent, turning their attention towards the source of the light. It was a series of bright flashes, piercing the darkness, illuminating the trees in short, rhythmic bursts. Koda's hair prickled as he watched, his curiosity mixing with growing unease. "What is that?" Rayla whispered, moving closer to Meika, who looked just as perplexed. Omaki stepped forward, her eyes narrowed as she observed the lights. "Humans," she said quietly. "It's some sort of signal, but it's different from their usual lights." Koda felt a surge of curiosity. The humans' tools and behaviors were becoming more intricate, more confusing. He had seen their lights before, but this was something new, something deliberate. Taron motioned for the younger ones to stay back. "They're searching," he said to Kubota. "They're getting closer each night." The adults decided to observe from a distance, positioning themselves at various vantage points to monitor the humans' movements. Koda felt a surge of frustration. He wanted to be a part of this, to see these strange lights up close, but he knew better than to argue. So he stayed back with his friends, watching as the elders faded into the shadows, leaving them to wait. A few nights later, Koda, Meika, Rayla, and Paka found themselves in an unexpected encounter that would test every skill they had learned. They had ventured out to forage for late-season berries near the edge of the river, staying within the shadows of the trees, careful to move quietly. But as they filled their handfuls with berries, a noise cut through the air, a distant shout, followed by the unmistakable crack of a branch breaking. Koda's heart sank as he realized they had wandered too close to a group of humans. They were surrounded. Without hesitation, Meika signaled for them to move, motioning towards the thicket nearby where they could hide. They crouched low, blending in with the shadows, their hearts pounding as the humans grew closer. But this time the humans were using their flashlights, sweeping the beams across the forest floor in a deliberate search. Koda tried to steady his breathing, remembering Omaki's advice. Stay still. Listen to the forest. But as the lights approached, he could feel the instincts urging him to flee. The humans moved slowly, their footsteps heavy and clumsy, but their lights made it impossible to escape undetected. They scanned the area, their voices hushed and tense, and Koda realized with a jolt of fear that they were getting closer. Too close. Meika gestured for them to separate, each of them moving to a different spot in the underbrush. Koda crawled towards a fallen log, pressing himself against the cool bark as the light passed over him. He held his breath, hoping the humans wouldn't spot him. Just when he thought they might be safe, a second group of humans appeared on the other side of the clearing, effectively trapping them. The young Sasquatches exchanged panicked glances, realizing that they were surrounded on all sides. Koda's mind raced, searching for a way out. Then he remembered one of Varro's lessons. When all else fails, move up. Without a sound, he began to climb the nearest tree, motioning for the others to do the same. Meika, Rayla, and Paka followed, their movements swift and silent as they ascended into the branches. They waited in tense silence, perched high above the humans, watching as the beams of light swept beneath them. The humans muttered to each other, frustrated by their inability to find anything, unaware that their quarry was just overhead. After what felt like an eternity, the humans finally retreated, their lights fading into the distance. The young Sasquatches waited until the sounds of their footsteps had completely disappeared before descending from the trees, their relief palpable. Koda said, still shaken by the experience, "They're getting better at tracking us." Meika gave him a determined look. "As long as we stick together and remember what we've learned, we'll always be one step ahead." In the days that followed, Koda and the others shared their narrow escape with the clan, each of them recounting their terrifying experience with a mixture of fear and pride. Omaki listened carefully, nodding as they described how they had used the trees to evade detection. She commended them for their quick thinking, but she also reminded them that the humans' presence was growing stronger. "We must be vigilant," she warned the clan. "This forest is our home, but it is changing, and we must adapt with it." Koda took her words to heart, feeling a renewed sense of responsibility. The encounters with the humans had taught him the importance of staying hidden, of blending with the forest, and using every skill he had learned to protect himself and his clan. He knew that the humans would keep coming, but he was determined to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With his family by his side and the strength of the clan guiding him, Koda felt ready. The forest was a place of beauty, danger, and mystery, and he was a part of it, forever bound to its secrets and its shadows. The night was thick with fog, the mist coiling around the trees like ghostly tendrils. Koda sat by the mouth of the cave, listening to the faint sounds of the sleeping clan and a soft murmur of the forest outside. But then, as he listened, another sound pierced the night, a distant, mournful howl that sent a chill down his spine. It was a sound he had heard before, echoing through the trees, stirring unease in his heart. Adanowa. Koda had never seen the rogue Sasquatch up close, but the stories of his terror had already become legend within the clan. His presence lingered like a shadow on the edge of their territory, a reminder of the dangers that lurked beyond their familiar trails. As the howl faded into the silence, Koda glanced back into the cave where his parents, Koda and Asha, lay huddled close, sleeping under the watchful eye of the elders, Taron and Omaki. Koda turned to see Omaki watching him, her gaze thoughtful and steady. "You heard it too, didn't you?" Koda whispered. Omaki nodded, her expression grave. "Adanowa is restless tonight," she said softly. "He calls out as he often does. But tonight, it feels different." Koda stirred, his eyes opening as he listened to Omaki's words. He sat up, his gaze turning towards Taron, who nodded slowly. "It's time we told you," Taron said, looking between Koda, Asha, and Koda. "The full story of Adanowa, of what drives him, and why he wanders, forever seeking something he may never find." Koda leaned forward. He had always known that Adanowa was dangerous, that he had once been a part of another clan, but he had never known the details, the dark path that had led the rogue to their territory. Taron took a deep breath, his gaze distant as he began to speak. "Adanowa wasn't always like this," he said, his voice filled with a quiet sorrow. "There was a time that he was part of a clan back east, in the dense forests of Tennessee. His family roamed the Appalachian Mountains, a place wild and beautiful, filled with ancient trees and hidden valleys." Omaki nodded, her eyes softening with a trace of pity. "But Adanowa's life was marked with tragedy from the beginning," she added. "When he was young, barely older than you, Koda, his parents were hunted down by humans. They were a part of the first Sasquatch clan in Tennessee to encounter humans on the Appalachian Trail." Koda felt a shiver as he imagined a young Adanowa, alone and grieving, left to survive in a world that had suddenly turned hostile. Taron continued, his voice laced with a deep sorrow. "Humans had been curious about the trail for a long time, moving farther into the forest. But as they built camps and left trails through the Sasquatch territory, they grew suspicious of the beings they sensed but could not see. Adanowa's parents were careful. They avoided the trails, only watching from a distance. But one day, the humans noticed their tracks, strange and different from any other creature. The clan listened intently as Taron described the tragic events that followed. The humans, fueled by curiosity and fear, had set up traps along the trail, hoping to catch a glimpse of the unknown creatures that haunted their campsites. Although they were always vigilant, one night they ventured too close. The humans spotted them, and a chase began, a relentless pursuit through the dense woods. They hunted them like animals, Omaki said softly, her voice trembling with anger. His parents tried to escape, but the humans were many, armed with weapons and tools that lit up the night like daylight. Koda's heart ached as he imagined the scene, the fear, the desperation, the final moments of Adanowa's parents as they tried to protect their child. "What happened to Adanowa?" he whispered. Taron's gaze darkened. He watched from the shadows, hidden in the hollow of a tree. He saw everything. The humans chasing his parents, the final struggle, and then he was alone. An orphan, left to survive in the world that had taken everything from him. Koda and Asha exchanged a sorrowful glance, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of the pain that had shaped Adanowa's life. They could see how such a loss would leave a mark on a young Sasquatch, how it would plant the seeds of anger and mistrust. Adanowa survived, Omaki continued, but he was never the same. His heart grew hardened, filled with a simmering rage that only deepened as he grew older. After the death of his parents, Adanowa wandered alone through the mountains, his anger festering into a dark resolve. He avoided humans at first, but as he grew stronger, his fear turned into something else, a desire for revenge. He became a shadow on the Appalachian Trail, Taron explained, his voice low and haunted. He would watch hikers from a distance, studying their movements, waiting for the right moment to strike. He knew the trail better than any human, and he used that knowledge to his advantage. Koda felt a chill as he listened, imagining Adanowa lurking in the shadows, his presence barely predictable as he stalked the hikers who ventured too far from the safety of the trail. The rogue's first encounters were cautious, almost experimental. He would break branches, leave single footprints, create eerie sounds that left the hikers trembling with unease. But eventually, his rage grew stronger than his restraint. Adanowa began to hunt them, Taron said. He would wait until they were alone, vulnerable, and then he would strike. The clan sat in stunned silence, each of them picturing the rogue's transformation from a grieving orphan to a vengeful predator. Koda felt a mixture of fear and pity. Fear for the monster Adanowa had become, but pity for the creature he had once been. Omaki continued, her gaze distant as she recounted the stories she had heard from other clans. His actions drew attention of nearby clans. They warned him, tried to reason with him, but Adanowa was consumed by his anger. He would not listen. And so, one by one, the clans pushed him out, casting him into the wilderness, hoping he would disappear. But Adanowa was determined. He left the Appalachian Mountains, wandering westward through the forest and mountains, following a path that would eventually lead him to the Olympic Peninsula. Along the way, he had encountered other Sasquatch clans, some who tried to help him, others who drove him away, fearing his violent tendencies. As Adanowa journeyed across the country, his path was marked by conflict and struggle. He had lost his family, his home, his sense of belonging, and in their place he carried only anger and a deep-seated mistrust of both humans and his own kind. Taron spoke of these encounters, his voice filled with a quiet reverence for the power and resilience of the rogue Sasquatch. He didn't care for alliances or friendships. He was driven by something darker, something that could not be reasoned with. Koda listened, mesmerized by the story of Adanowa's journey. He could feel the weight of the rogue's anger, the isolation that had shaped him into the creature of fear and violence. In the dense forest of Kentucky, Adanowa had encountered a clan that guarded their territory fiercely. They were weary of outsiders, and they recognized the danger that Adanowa posed. When he refused to leave, a brutal confrontation ensued, with Adanowa barely escaping with his life. He had learned that not all Sasquatch were willing to accept him, and that his rage made him an outcast among his own kind. But despite the wounds he carried, both physical and emotional, Adanowa pressed on. He passed through the Great Plains, crossing rivers and mountains, always moving westward, his path a twisted journey of survival and vengeance. He encountered humans along the way, and each encounter fueled his hatred, reminding him of the night his parents were taken from him. It was in the Rocky Mountains that Adanowa's descent into darkness became complete. The vast wilderness offered him solitude, but it also brought him face to face with other Sasquatch clans, each of them weary of the lone stranger who wandered into their territory. One such encounter had nearly cost Adanowa his life. He had stumbled into a clan's hunting grounds, his scent alerting the Alpha to his presence. The Alpha, a massive Sasquatch named Garak, confronted Adanowa, challenging him for his recklessness. But Adanowa's anger had reached a boiling point. He fought back with a ferocity that shocked even Garak, refusing to back down even when he was outmatched. The fight was brutal, leaving Adanowa scarred and battered. But it also solidified his status as a rogue, a creature of violence and rage who would not bow to any authority. He left the Rockies, his body marked with the scars of his battles, his heart hardened to the world around him. By the time he reached the Olympic Peninsula, Adanowa had become a legend amongst the Sasquatch clans. His name was spoken in whispers, a warning to those who would cross his path. He was a creature of the shadows, a being of darkness who roamed the forest with a single purpose: to survive and to make the humans pay for the pain that they had inflicted on him. When Adanowa finally arrived in the Olympic Peninsula, he found a land as wild and untamed as his own heart. The dense forests, the towering mountains, and the vast stretches of wilderness offered him the solitude he craved. But even here, he could not escape the presence of humans. They ventured into his territory, leaving trails and campsites, their presence a constant reminder of the life he had lost. He settled here, but his rage never faded, Meika explained. He has been hunting humans ever since, striking fear in the hearts of those who venture too close. And now, he is here, haunting these woods, a reminder of the pain that lives within him. Koda felt a shiver as he listened to the final part of Adanowa's story. He understood now why the rogue was so feared, why his presence cast a shadow over the clan. Adanowa was more than a threat. He was a creature shaped by tragedy, a being whose heart had been consumed by anger and loss. "This is why we must be vigilant," Koda said softly. "Adanowa may be dangerous, but he is also lost, a creature who has been hurt in ways we cannot imagine. We must respect him, but we must also protect ourselves." Asha nodded. "We will keep our family safe no matter what." As the clan sat in silence, each of them lost in their own thoughts, Koda felt a deep sense of understanding. Adanowa was not just a monster. He was a tragic figure, a reminder of the dangers that lurked in a world beyond their forest. But he also felt a renewed sense of purpose. He would take everything he had learned, every skill he had honed, and use it to protect his clan, to ensure that they would never face the same fate as Adanowa. And as the howls of the rogue echoed through the night, Koda knew that he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, and to protect his family from the darkness that had claimed Adanowa's soul.